All right, good evening. So, just jumping on tonight, talk about generative AI and its impacts on data engineering and all of the data professions. In addition, I have a pet project that I am working on around creating synthetic data sets that I may touch on if we have time and there's interest. So, one of the questions that I get a lot is how does generative AI impact data engineering and really all the data professions, right? Because generative AI is such a big thing right now. As AI continues to grow, um, there are so many tools, different tools out there. Uh, Generative AI, it's not going to come in and take anybody's job, right? It's there. It has a long way to go to before it gets anywhere close to perfect, but it is a amazing tool to create efficiencies and synergies with troubleshooting different pieces of code, helping you along your way. Definitely has a quicker helps to speed up your time to production, right? So that you could ask it questions and it'll give you some good feedback. Definitely still have to be careful with it. It is not 100%. You can ask it for a Python script for a specific instance, for a specific situation, and it may return back pieces of code that are not viable, that don't actually belong in Python. So it'll get you maybe 80% of the way, but you have to take it to the finish line, right? There's always going to be adjustments that have to be made, and the reality is, as data professionals, our value that we bring to the table is our intimacy with the data, our understanding of the data, and how to manipulate it, and what insights we need from it, and what is valuable and what is not. And those are the things that we bring to the table as data professionals. So, I do want to talk, though, about aspiring data engineers and for SMBs, so small and medium sized businesses that may be beginning their data journey. Things like Claude and OpenAI are amazing tools to be able to understand how to use their data, how to maybe get their data from one place to another. Um, it is an amazing tool, again, to create some synthetic data sets so that you can go out there and practice SQL, and so that you go out there and practice Python, so that you practice moving data from one place to another, uh, as you're doing, as you're practicing creating pipelines or various ELT or ETL processes. Um, Definitely has huge application when it comes to that, taking large chunks of complex code, putting it in there, seeing if it can come up with any efficiencies that maybe you didn't come up with, um, or explaining what it's doing. Oftentimes, as data engineers and data professionals, we walk into jobs and places where we are inheriting other people's code, and Claude, ChatGPT, um, Gemini, and all of those, they will explain that code to you. Copilot is a great one for that in particular. Um, and so you drop in the code. Obviously, make sure there's no proprietary information. No, hopefully, people aren't putting code in the keys and stuff directly into their code anyways, and they're using some parameter files. Um, but make sure that it's cleansed of any of that before you drop it into one of the AI tools. AI tools have, as far as security goes, have come a long way over the past couple of years. Um, there were definitely some security concerns up front. We saw those coming through the news. We saw all those concerns and all those breaches as AI was growing. A lot of those, though, most of those have now been resolved, and they're not such a huge concern. Not that I want to go out and put a key in there, or password or username or anything like that. But you put a query in there and see what it comes back with, right? You could tell it, hey, this is what I want to see. This is what I'm trying to do. Tell me, tell me your thoughts on how to approach this. Um, these are AI is a amazing brainstorming tool. It is especially for those that may be in echo chambers anyways. If you are in a position, maybe you're an existing data engineer or existing data analyst or data scientist, and you may be the only data person in your org. I had several of those experiences as I came up through the ranks, as I have been through my 25 years of my career. Uh, so many times you are in a echo chamber and you're the data person for an org or for a company or for a small business, and you don't have another person to bounce ideas off of. So these are great tools to be able to do that, to be able to go out and say, hey, I have this idea, this is my approach, this is what I want to do, what do you think? And you could have a virtual conversation with it. I mean, um, AI is a great tool for those types of brainstorming sessions. Again, it's never going to be 100%. It's never going to get you all the way there. There's always going to be little pieces that you need to wrap up to get it, to the finish line. But it will help you along the way. It will help to teach you SQL or Python if you are a beginner. Again, you probably need to have a foundation in those things so that you can identify when it gives you something that, hey, that's not right. And you could tell ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot or whatever, hey, this doesn't work. Or you could give it the error and it'll say, oh, yeah, I forgot, and give you the correct code. It will literally type out, oh, I forgot. That's not right. Here's the right code. Um, in addition, you could tell it, you just look at it for those of us that have been around for a while and say, be like, hey, that's not the right syntax for this. And it'll say, oh, yeah, and give you the right syntax. So it does make errors. It will, uh, you know, it will own up to its errors and, try to give you a more accurate answer. But keep an eye on it. You don't know what it's going to give you all the time. So those are some ways that Gen AI and AI in general is impacting our careers and our profession. I think that as we continue to grow AI and increase its capabilities, I think it's going to be that much more important that we do learn how to get to that production piece quicker and to efficiently create code efficiently and quickly get to a production instance of what we're working on that much quicker because those tools are available. It's not like 25 years ago when we didn't even really have a stack exchange, right? So we have all these tools now, um, Stack Exchange and the internet as it developed really helped to, make people, bring people all together and to uh, be able to collaborate and learn from each other and have different things out there. Uh, Hopefully, as you've seen other pieces of other people's things, you've taken it, made it your own, been able to learn and adapt as you've been able to, get all that information. But this is just another evolution of that. This is another tool that you could use to be more efficient, to learn quicker, to ramp up quicker, and to be a professional and to be a data master of all things, right? I mean, it really is an exciting time to be part of this profession. I love data engineering and data, so it's really cool and really fun to see how these tools come out and evolve and things like that. So, all right, well, um, I know it's late. It's like 12:30 my time, so but I wanted to jump on and kind of talk through some of these things. Um, I'm going to share my screen and show you what I have done for the Gen AI synthetic datasets. So uh, what I have here is a just a Python script that I wrote out. I've got a parameter function that I've created and a parameter file that I've created, so I don't have to put again, all my keys and passwords and stuff in the Python script itself. So you'll see there's a bunch of functions in here. I have a video set up that I'll be doing in probably about a week where I'm walking through all this and actually comparing the functionality of using Anthropic, which is Claude's API, and comparing that with OpenAPI, which is ChatGPT, and showing you which one's more efficient, which one is more accurate, which one gives you a better data set, and why. And we're going to do a little showdown of OpenAI versus Anthropic and see who wins. So hopefully that'll be a cool and fun uh, video that we'll do. So all that to say, all this code basically does is you could feed it a description. I put in here, I want healthcare data from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And it's not going to give me the actual data, but it will give me similar data to a healthcare data set from Blue Cross Blue Shield. You could tell it, if there's certain columns that you specifically want, you could tell it what columns you want. If there's a specific piece of information that you're wanting to be able to evaluate and test and play with, then you could ask for those fields. If there's any constraints, like you want to be sure that you're creating a primary key, you put those constraints in here. I've put in a place for total records and batch size. Batch size actually needs to be 25, and let's do total records 10. Make that 10 and 10, just to be quick and fast. And then you put in your table name, and then it goes through and actually asks Anthropic for that data. Anthropic will return, actually, in this case, the actual insert into statements for each record. And the script will take those insert into statements and put that data directly into my SQL Server. So this actually is like a full pipeline of asking an AI for a data set, returning that data set, feeding the data set directly into a SQL Server. So you could even, if you wanted to do some cleansing or you wanted to do some other transformations, you could do that within here. I'm not, because I am literally trying to get the data set so that we can use it for a test ground of cleaning data and learning from what dirty data looks like and what whole data looks like and how to adjust those things when they come up. So that's the whole point of this, is to try to get some realistic, real world type data sets. So we're going to run this, and I'm going to show you how it comes out. I have some print statements in here just to show, the different things that are going on. But one of the things that I found while I was doing this is that if you didn't explicitly tell it, hey, I need the data back for these fields for this type of data, because you have to loop through, right? There's only so many tokens that you could process at once. So when you're asking for something like 10,000 records, it has to loop through several iterations before it gets all 10,000 records out. But you could ask for 10,000 records and it will eventually come out. But that being said, I am creating a create table statement based on my initial ask to, in this case, Anthropic, which is kind of what we see up at the top here is it is returning back a list of a schema in JSON format, and then it's taking that JSON format and creating a table. So it's then checking to see if that table exists and creating the table in the SQL Server. And then it's actually taking this create table statement and using that for all of the loop iterations as it goes back and loops back into the data. So if anybody has any questions as I'm going through this, be sure to stop me. Put your questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions about generative AI, about the Python script, about using Anthropic or OpenAI's libraries. Be sure to put them in the chat. Or about any general data engineering questions or SQL or Python questions. So happy to answer any questions. Just pop them in the chat. But right now, just kind of going through how to create some synthetic data sets. So, so taking that create table statement, feeding it back into the message request when it's going back in and doing another query to Anthropic so that it feeds back the data in that with those exact fields and the data that needs to be there for those exact fields. So, so then it creates those, puts them into SQL Server, and then we could actually pop over to SQL Server here, and we'll run this query, and we'll see that we have the 10 records here. We have the patient ID, first name, last name, date of birth, gender. Again, this is all synthetic data, so none of it is real data, but it looks close to real data, right? I mean, obviously the phone numbers are not right, not real. They're just pretend because they all are 555 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth. Addresses are 123 Main Street, 789 Elm Street. So obviously not real. Emails are at email.com. So again, this is just the synthetic data. Everything is anonymized to protect the innocent. But has a bunch of information. And for something like healthcare data where you don't necessarily want to, where there's, privacy concerns, major privacy concerns, or, customer, PII, where there are things like GDPR and CCPA, where there are some privacy concerns around those things. You don't necessarily want to train a model on data sets that are not anonymized for that information. So be sure that, so this is a way to train a model or create a model for machine learning that has anonymized data, has data that's not specific to a person, but real enough and real world enough that you could train a model and get it to start being able to identify different things. But I would bet my experience with playing with this over the last couple of weeks is that these diagnosis codes are probably accurate. So if any of you out there are in healthcare data, let me know. Are these diagnosis codes accurate? Are they real? They might be. My experience is that, for example, I pulled a Square Enix data set on video games, and it came back video games that I am familiar with from Square Enix. So some of the data is real data. Some of the data is anonymized, synthetic data. So diagnosis codes, these might be real diagnosis codes and real diagnosis descriptions. I'm not sure. Again, if anybody out there is in healthcare, let me know. Love to know how accurate that is. But yeah, has some procedure descriptions in here. Provider names are obviously not real. ABC Medical Center, Smile Dental Clinic. There probably is a Smile Dental Clinic out there. ENT specialists, probably, Family Care Clinic, Bright Smiles Dentistry. I mean, there can be realistic companies with those names out there. So addresses, cities, states, claim amount, amount paid, and claim status. So pretty cool. I mean, pretty detailed information without being having to explicitly call out every field that you might want. But you can, I've set up that code so that you can explicitly call out different fields if you want different fields. Let's I'm going to show you that it'll do 100 pretty quickly just so that we have a little bit more data. So I did set this up because I'm inserting into a staging table so that when you do run it, it deletes the old, it looks to see if the table exists. If it does exist, then it's going to delete the existing table, create a new table, and start loading that table. Obviously, if you need to keep the existing table and just keep on loading on top of that, then you could go in and change the code if you're familiar enough with Python. But if anybody out there wants to collaborate on this project, I am happy to jump on like a Google Meet and take a look at it together and talk through it, and maybe we could collab on it. So if anybody's interested in something like that, be sure to ping me. My email is on my YouTube channel, chris.gamble@gambledataengineering.com. In addition, I've got this right here, gambledataengineering.com/contact. You could reach out from there and reach me as well. So check me out in those places. If you're interested in getting this code, I'm happy to share it with anybody. You'll have to go out to Claude and get your own API key, but that's pretty straightforward and easy. And then obviously put some money on there. It's not real expensive. I pulled 10,000 records to match a Coca-Cola sales data set that I was playing with, and have been doing this for a couple weeks now, and still have like $5 of the $25 that I initially loaded on there. So it's not super expensive. There is some cost to it, but it's pretty cool. You could create pretty realistic data sets that you could go out and start playing with and start learning. If there is, it's great because for those of you that are aspiring data engineers or data analysts, you could go out, pick the industry that you are going to apply for, pick even the company you're going to apply for, tell it, I want this industry, this company's sales data or healthcare data or whatever the case may be, lead data, and it's going to give you a pretty realistic data set as to what their data looks like. Then you could go into that interview and say, hey, I used Gen AI. I pulled a synthetic data set and to try and match the types of data that you'd be playing with, but that you'd be working with. And I went out and practiced with it so that I could prepare myself for this interview. And oh my God, what a leg up that would be when you walk into an interview and told them that. They're either going to be terrified that that generative AI has that capability, or they're going to be so incredibly impressed with you that that you took the initiative to go out and identify that data and start to familiarize with the types of data sets that they may be working with. So again, I think it's a great tool to learn. I think it's a great tool to prepare for an interview for a company. It is again, it's pretty quick. It is, you'll see that we've loaded 50 records so far of our 100. But it's really cool. It's not, you could go out to Kaggle and, get some data sets that way if you want to play with and learn from. There are a ton of different resources. Data.world is one of them that you could go out and get different data sets. Very few of them that you're going to find can you put in the name of the company, the type of data that you want, and get exactly what you're or close to what you're looking for that's going to be applicable to the position or the company that you're going to be applying for. That's going to be nearly as close as this data set. So, if it, if you want to test it, I'm happy to test it for you. If you don't have a Anthropic account, if you want to see what a data set might look like for a specific industry or a specific company, ping me, let me know. I'm happy to run it through here and see what we get. So, like I said, if there's any questions, be sure to stop me. Let me know. I'm happy to take a look at any of those things with you. As I said, I probably jumping on here for about 30 minutes tonight, which gives us about 5 more minutes. But wanted to be sure to jump on here and kind of talk through some of this stuff I've been working on. We're at 70 records, but even as it's loading, I'll show you we could actually still go in here and run this, and it's not going to interfere with the loading. It'll continue to load those records, but you'll see that we're at 70 records. And you'll see, again, you'll see that all that information, you'll see all that same information we talked about, procedure descriptions and charges and copay amounts and deductible amounts. I think this time we actually have a little bit different of a data set when we ran it this time. I don't think that last time we had deductible amounts and coinsurance amounts. So this one, you might get a little bit different of a data set each time that you run it. So if you do explicitly define the fields, then you'll probably get very similar data sets each time. Maybe not the actual data, but at least the fields will be similar. But if you don't, then you might get a little bit different each time, and that may be what you're wanting. You may not know what a specific data set's going to look like until you start asking for it, and then you could adjust from there. If you want different fields that maybe it didn't populate the first time, then you could just rerun it and ask it for those specific fields that you want to see. So really cool. I've been really excited about this because I've been wanting to be able to share with some of my mentees different data sets and different ways that they could create data sets for their training so that it's more unique and more specialized to what they're doing. And this Python script will get them there. All right. Well, we do have a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything. Yeah, I think that, so the question is in the chat is, do I think that these generative AI tools are going to help aspiring data professionals ramp up quicker and not have such a learning curve? I think there's still going to be a learning curve, especially if you don't already have a foundation in things like SQL and Python. I think that, but I think that once you have that foundation, ramping up from a basic level, a beginner level, into an intermediate and a advanced level is going to be quicker. That time to market, that time to ramp up through those levels will hopefully be quicker because you have these tools available to you. I think that's like the perfect use case for AI right now, is to use it for learning and from after a basic level, because I think that you still need that basic level, that foundation, to be able to kind of push back on the AI and be like, I don't think that's quite right, and to be able to get the right answer. Great question. Well, cool. We're about, well, if you have any questions, be sure to ask them in the chat. Again, open to any data engineering questions or, data any data profession questions, whether that be interview topics or generative AI. Be sure to just pop them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, uh, again, Gen AI is not taking anybody's job anytime soon. Not perfect, but it definitely has its uses, especially when it comes to learning and uh, synthetic data sets like this. Well, if there's not any other questions, I'm gonna get back to it. But uh, be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing my detailed explanation and the open AI versus Anthropic showdown that I'm going to do. And I'll see you again later. Thanks.